I didn't sleep the night before I did it. I sat in the kitchen with a cup of coffee that went cold before I touched it, watching the clock on the microwave blink from 2:47 to 2:48, thinking about all the years I had given that boy. Thinking about the first time I held him, how small his fingers were, how I promised him I would always be there. I sat there and I thought about all of that. And then I thought about what he said to me in front of everyone at that dinner table, and I picked up my phone and I made the call. My name is Patricia. I'm 67 years old. I raised my son Marcus alone after his father left when Marcus was 4. I worked 31 years as an office administrator for a regional insurance company in Columbus, Ohio. I clipped coupons. I drove a 2009 Honda Accord until the transmission gave out. I packed Marcus's lunch every single day through 12th grade, even the days he told me not to bother. Even the days he came home smelling like someone else's cigarettes and wouldn't look me in the eye. I did all of that because I loved him, because he was mine. I want to be clear about something before I tell you the rest of this. I was not a perfect mother. I worked long hours. I missed a school play once because my boss needed me to cover for someone. I didn't always know the right thing to say when Marcus was hurting. But I showed up. Every single time I showed up. Marcus grew up smart. Genuinely smart. The kind where his teachers would pull me aside and say things like, he could go anywhere. He got a scholarship to Ohio State, studied accounting, graduated with honors. I drove to that ceremony by myself, and I cried so hard my mascara ran down to my chin and I didn't care one bit. I was so proud of him I couldn't breathe. He met Vanessa his second year working at a firm in Cincinnati. She was sharp, pretty, had her own career doing something in marketing. I liked her at first. I want to say that clearly too. I liked her at first. She had this energy about her, very put together, very confident. Marcus seemed happy. They got married in 2016. Small ceremony, which was fine. I helped pay for the flowers and the catering because Marcus said they were watching their budget. I didn't mind. What I minded came later. It started small, the way these things always do. Vanessa would make comments at family dinners. Little ones. Oh, Patricia, you made this from scratch? How quaint. Or she'd look around my house, the house I've owned outright since 2008, the house I paid for with 30 years of working, and she'd say something like, I love that you've kept it so original. Not a real insult you could point to. Just enough to make you feel like you were standing in your own home with muddy shoes. Marcus never said anything. I told myself it was just her personality. I told myself she was adjusting to a new family. I made excuses the way mothers do, because what's the alternative? To admit that the boy you raised doesn't have enough backbone to tell his wife to be kind to the woman who raised him. They had a son in 2019, little Caleb. And I want to tell you, their baby was everything. I drove to Cincinnati every other weekend. I brought food, I babysat, I did whatever they needed. I never said no. Not once. In 2021, Marcus came to me with an opportunity. He'd been offered a chance to buy into a small accounting firm in Columbus. His own name on the door. His own clients. He was so excited when he told me about it. He sat right there at my kitchen table and he looked like he was 12 years old again, the way his eyes got when he was talking about something he really wanted. The buy-in was $80,000. He and Vanessa didn't have it liquid. His credit was good, but not enough for the terms they needed. He asked if I would co-sign a loan. I said yes without hesitating. I want you to understand what that meant for me. I was 63 years old. I was 2 years from retirement. Co-signing meant my name was on that debt. If something went wrong, it didn't go wrong for Marcus and Vanessa. It went wrong for me. It went wrong for the house. It went wrong for everything I had spent 30 years building. I said yes anyway, because he was my son. The business did well. Within 18 months, Marcus had paid down a significant portion of the loan and things looked stable. He made good money. Vanessa went back to work part-time. They bought a house in a nice suburb, 4 bedrooms, finished basement, the kind of neighborhood where everyone has a Ring doorbell and a Peloton in the garage. And somewhere in there, something shifted. I don't know exactly when it happened. I don't know if it was the money or the neighborhood or Vanessa's influence or something in Marcus I never saw coming. But he started pulling away. The calls got shorter. The visits stopped. When I called, he'd pick up and say, "Mom, I'm in the middle of something, can I call you back?" And then he wouldn't call back. Caleb's birthday in 2023. I found out from my sister that they'd had a party. A full birthday party with a bouncy castle and a cake shaped like a dinosaur and 20 kids from the neighborhood. I saw the photos on Facebook. I had not been invited. I called Marcus and asked him about it. Calmly. And he said they had kept it low-key. And it wasn't really a family thing. I was looking at a photo of his mother-in-law holding Caleb up next to the dinosaur cake while he told me this. I still did not say what I was really feeling. I was still making excuses. The thing about mothers is that we are trained. From the moment we hold them, we are trained to absorb, to take it, process it, love through it. I had been absorbing for so long that I didn't even feel the sting anymore. It had just become the temperature of things. And then came Christmas 2023. Marcus called in November and said they wanted to do the holiday at their house. Said it like he was doing me a favor. I was glad. I went out and bought gifts for Caleb, for Vanessa, for Marcus, spent more than I should have on a teacher's salary. And yes, I know I said I was an administrator, but I'd gone back to school at 58 and taken a part-time tutoring position after I retired. Because sitting still makes me anxious, I wrapped everything. Drove 2.5 hours to Cincinnati on December 23rd. Brought a green bean casserole and a pecan pie because Marcus grew up loving pecan pie. There were other people there. Vanessa's parents, her brother, his girlfriend, some friends of theirs I'd never met. I was fine. I settled in, played with Caleb, made small talk. Normal holiday. Dinner was when it happened. We were all sitting at the table. 14 people. The food was good, the wine was flowing, everyone was relaxed. Marcus was at the head of the table, his table in his house, which I had helped him afford, and he was telling some story about a golf trip he'd taken with clients. Very animated. The whole table was laughing. And then Vanessa's brother asked Marcus something about expanding the business, whether he'd thought about taking on a partner, opening a second location. And Marcus leaned back in his chair and he said, "Well, the business is fully mine now. No outside obligations." He said it easy, like it was nothing. Like it was just a fact. Vanessa's mother asked what he meant. And Marcus said, and I need to say this slowly because I still cannot believe it came out of his mouth. He said, "We had a bit of a support situation early on, family helping out. But we've structured things so that's behind us now. We don't carry dead weight anymore." Dead weight. I was sitting right there. 14 people at that table. I looked at my son, and I waited for him to look at me, to acknowledge what he had just said in front of everyone, to correct it, to say I didn't mean it like that. He picked up his wine glass and took a sip. Vanessa laughed softly at something her brother said. Nobody looked at me. I have replayed that moment so many times. The way the candlelight hit the centerpiece, a little arrangement of pine cones and white ribbon that Vanessa had probably found on Pinterest. The way Caleb was pushing peas around his plate. The way Marcus just moved on, like I wasn't there, like he hadn't just described his mother, the woman who co-signed his entire future, as dead weight in front of strangers at Christmas dinner. I excused myself and went to the bathroom. I ran cold water over my wrists the way my mother taught me to do when I needed to calm down. I looked at myself in the mirror. I was wearing a burgundy blouse I'd bought specifically for the holiday. I had driven 2.5 hours with a pecan pie. I walked back to the table and I finished my dinner. I did not say a word about it. I hugged Caleb goodnight. I thanked Vanessa for the meal. I told Marcus it was good to see him. I drove back to Columbus in the dark. Now here is what you have to understand about why I did not just cry and let it go, the way I probably would have done 5 years earlier. When I got home that night, I went to my filing cabinet and I pulled out the loan documents from 2021. I had looked at them so many times I knew them almost by memory, but I needed to see them with my own eyes that night. My name was still on that loan. Marcus had paid down the balance, but the loan had not been formally closed. We were still co-borrowers. And because of the way the original agreement was structured, something the loan officer had explained and I had documented carefully because I am nothing if not careful, I had retained a secured interest in certain business assets as collateral. In plain language, if that loan defaulted, the bank could come after me. And because I had protected myself, because I am 67 years old and I did not survive 3 decades of single motherhood without learning to read the fine print, I had rights attached to that collateral. I had said yes to Marcus. I had also said yes carefully. I called my attorney the next morning. Her name is Carol, and I have worked with her for 11 years, and she is the kind of woman who doesn't waste a single word. I told her what happened. I told her about the dinner. I told her about dead weight, and then I told her what I wanted to do. She was quiet for a moment. She said, "Patricia, you have the right to do this. It will be uncomfortable. Are you sure?" I said yes. Here is what I did. I did not take the business. I did not ruin him. I want to be clear about that, because this is not a story about revenge. It is a story about the moment I finally decided that my dignity had a value, and I was going to act like it. I exercised my rights under the collateral agreement and formally notified the bank that I was withdrawing my cosigner status and calling in the secured interest review. It triggered a mandatory audit of the business assets. It didn't close the business. It didn't empty the accounts. But it froze certain asset transfers and required Marcus to refinance under his name alone, without my backing, within 60 days. He had the income to do it. It would cost him in higher rates and restructured terms, but he could do it. What it also did was send him a letter, a formal, legal letter from Carol's office on a Tuesday morning in January while he was sitting at his desk in the office with his name on the door. He called me 11 minutes after Carol said the letter would be delivered. He was furious. He couldn't believe I had done it. He said I was being vindictive. He said I was jealous of what he'd built. He said, and this one took my breath away, he said, "I never asked for your help." I let him finish, and then I said, "Marcus, you sat at your Christmas dinner table and called me dead weight in front of 14 people, including strangers. You did not call me to apologize. You did not acknowledge what you said. You moved on like I wasn't in the room. I gave you the best years of my working life. I signed my name and my security onto your dream. And you described that as dead weight." I paused. "I'm not being vindictive. I'm just finally telling you what that was worth to me." He hung up. Vanessa called 20 minutes later. She was more composed than Marcus, which somehow made it worse. She said they needed to talk about this rationally. She said I was creating unnecessary stress. She said she thought we were past this as a family. I said, "Vanessa, I don't think we were ever the kind of family you think we were." And I say that without anger. I just think it's time we all understood the arrangement clearly. She also hung up. I sat at my kitchen table. My coffee was hot this time. I drank the whole cup. What happened over the following weeks was not easy. There were more calls. There were voicemails from Marcus that went from angry to something closer to panicked, as the refinancing process turned out to be more complicated than he'd expected. His business partner, he'd taken one on the previous year, had questions about the audit. Marcus had to explain. It was humbling for him. I know that. I did not enjoy knowing that. But I also did not step in to fix it. My sister called me and said Marcus had called her. She said he seemed upset. I said, "I know." She asked if I was okay. I said, "I'm getting there." Marcus refinanced at the end of February. The process cost him money. He has not spoken to me beyond what was legally necessary. I still think about Caleb all the time. That part is the hardest thing. Caleb is 5 years old and he doesn't know any of this. I sent him a birthday card in March with a little book about trucks because he loves trucks, and I don't know if he got it. I have to live with that. I have to live with the fact that the cost of standing up for myself is that I may not see that little boy the way I want to. But here is what I also know. I know that I am 67 years old and I have maybe 15 or 20 good years left, God willing. And I have watched too many women spend those years making themselves smaller so that the people who take from them feel comfortable. I watched my own mother do it. I swore I would not. There is a difference between forgiveness and being a doormat. I learned that the hard way, but I learned it. I forgave Marcus a long time ago for not being the son I imagined he'd be. I forgave him every time he pulled away, Every short phone call, every missed birthday, every little comment from Vanessa that landed like a paper cut. I forgave all of it, quietly, because I loved him. But forgiveness doesn't mean you put your name on something and let someone call it dead weight. It has been 4 months now. Marcus and I are not speaking, not really. He sent a text in March that said, "Hope you're well." I wrote back, "You too." I don't know what comes next. I don't know if he'll come around. I don't know if one day he'll sit at his own kitchen table when he's older, when Caleb is grown and maybe pulling away from him, and he'll think about Christmas 2023 and understand something he doesn't understand now. I hope so. But I cannot wait for that to happen before I decide I matter. That's the thing nobody tells you about being a mother. They tell you that you will love your children more than you love yourself, and that's true. But what they don't tell you is that you still have to love yourself enough to survive them. I drove past the park last week where I used to take Marcus when he was small. There's a bench there, near the duck pond. We used to bring stale bread and he would run right to the edge, which terrified me, and I would stand behind him with my hands out, ready, always ready. I sat on that bench for a while, just watching the water. Nobody knew who I was. Nobody knew what I'd been through or what I'd done or what it cost me. I sat there until I felt like myself again. And then I got up and I went home. I've been thinking a lot lately about what it actually means when someone shows you who they are. Not the first time, not the second, but the time when they do it so casually, so comfortably, that you realize they've been thinking it for a long time. They just finally stopped hiding it. That's what Christmas dinner was for me. Marcus didn't snap that night. He didn't say something in a moment of rage that he didn't mean. He said it the way you say something you've rehearsed in your own head so many times it stops feeling like a confession and starts feeling like a confession and starts feeling like a fact. Dead weight. 2 words. 14 people at the table. And he reached for his wine glass. That moment cost me something I can't fully name. Not because it surprised me. If I'm honest with myself, something in me had been bracing for it for years, but because it confirmed what I had been refusing to see, that I had spent decades pouring into someone who had quietly decided my value was conditional. That as long as I was useful, I was welcome. The moment I became something he'd already used up, I became a liability. I've thought about why Marcus turned out this way, and I don't have a clean answer. I know I wasn't a perfect mother. I know there are things I could have done differently. But I also know that what he did that night wasn't about my imperfections. It was about what he'd chosen to become. Someone who measures people by what they can still offer him, and discards the rest. That's not something that happens to a person. That's something a person builds. One small choice at a time. Every time Marcus let Vanessa's comments slide, every missed birthday call, every "I'll call you back" that never came, each one was a brick. By Christmas 2023, he'd built a wall so solid he could sit across a dinner table from his mother and not even flinch. What I did in January wasn't revenge. I need to say that again because I think it matters. I didn't want to destroy him. I didn't want to watch him suffer. I pulled my name off that business because leaving it there, after what he said, would have been me agreeing with him. It would have been me saying, "You're right. I don't matter enough to protect myself. And I've spent 67 years working too hard to sign off on that." There is something that happens when you finally stop absorbing. When you stop taking the hit and smoothing it over and telling yourself it's fine. It's family. It'll get better. There's a quiet that comes into you. Not a happy quiet, not right away. More like the quiet of a house after a long storm. Everything is still a little wet, but the noise is gone. I don't know what Marcus will do with what happened. I don't know if he'll look at Caleb one day and understand something he doesn't understand now. I hope he does. Not for my sake anymore, but for Caleb's. Because that little boy deserves a father who knows how to value people before they're gone. What I know is this: the life you build is a reflection of every choice you made when it would have been easier to make a different one. Marcus made his choices. And finally, in January, so did I. I chose myself, quiet legally, completely. And I would do it again.